traffic in and out of the strait. With that, we bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, former Army Vice Chief of Staff, now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and Fox News' senior strategic analyst. General Keane, it's great to have you with us today, sir. I'd like to start by just playing this exchange with President Trump earlier today, asking about whether or not he regretted lifting the blockade in the first place. Watch this.
Do you have any regrets about lifting the naval blockade or giving the sanctions waivers?
No. I gave them a chance. I wanted to give them a chance at making a deal. You know, we had a deal 2 days ago. It was done. And then all of a sudden, they couldn't do it. They didn't like something about the deal. They couldn't do it. And they shot first, and that was a big mistake that they shot first, because we have been knocking the hell out of them.
General Keane, your reaction to that and where we stand today as the blockade goes back into action?
Well, it's not a surprising comment. I mean, the president has given these people enormous amount of leeway here to come forward and really make a deal, and he actually signed a document, you know, on the 17th, not too long ago, that was supposed to provide testimony to a deal that they had achieved. And the Iranians, you know, kind of blew a hole in all of that, because a couple of days later they went out and violated the only agreement that was in the deal. The memorandum of understanding was an agreement to open up the Straits of Hormuz. We would remove the blockade, Iran would remove their control and interference. That was the only thing that was really a deal. The rest of it was all a promise to solve the greater problems over a 60-day or possibly even longer period. And within a couple of days, we saw their violation of it. I think the president just threw up his arms and he's fed up with it. He's fed up with the lying. He's fed up with, you know, being played by these people. I mean, they look urbane, sophisticated, kind of dressed like us. They seem to be reasonable. They seem to appear that they truly want to do something here that's meaningful for their own people. But I think their actions reflect the 47-year history. That's the facts of it. Regardless of who's in charge right now, they are committing to the same ideology that their predecessors have done. And that's where the president is. And that is why we're watching right now the battle of the Straits of Hormuz unfold before our eyes. And it's got two major focuses to it. One is to take out all the things in the coastal area that permit them to interfere with shipping. So that, obviously that's drones, it's missiles, it's fast boats, it's their radars and sensors, it's their command and control, and whatever logistic infrastructure keeps that going. You saw them just take down a plant recently within the last several hours, and that's an indicator that that plant obviously keeps a lot of that equipment sustained. The second focus area, and this is crucial, is what is Iran doing about our attacking them? Well, one, they're trying to continue to interfere, but two, as you noted, Martha, they're attacking our allies and partners in the region and U.S. bases. And how are they doing that? Ballistic missiles and drones. So the second focus area is to take down as much of that retaliation as we possibly can. So we're going after the launch systems for the ballistic missiles, the missiles themselves, and their transporters. We're likely rubbling the entrances to the tunnels where they keep these, which we have done before. They excavated and took some out, and that keeps and contains those missiles in there. They can't get it out without a major engineering operation, and obviously we can interfere with that. Same thing with drone storage areas. So those are the two focus points. It's going to take some time. This is a condition-based operation. Cooper has been given, Admiral Cooper, the leeway to conduct this operation, and he'll know when he has satisfied the objectives in terms of reducing their capability to interfere and significantly reducing capability to retaliate. Probably about a week, but that, I don't know for sure because it's a condition-based operation. But, and obviously he'll report to the Secretary of War and to the President on how he's doing.
You just touched on exactly what I was going to ask you about next, General, and that is that I know you were frustrated by the imposition of the ceasefire in the first place, wanted to finish the targets that were still on the target list that Admiral Cooper had to sort of continue to degrade their ability to fight in the Strait and to operate in the Strait. So you're saying another week? I remember at one point you said it would probably take 2 weeks to finish that target list. Give us an update on that, if you would.
Well, we're talking two different things here.
Okay.
This is a battle for the Straits of Hormuz and the limitations of what that is. we had 2 weeks to complete Epic Fury, and that deals with the whole comprehensive targets that we were dealing with. Leadership targets, IRGC organizations, industrial base, manufacturing capability, and the list goes on. We're not dealing with all of that here. We're dealing with a limited operation with the 2 focus points that I just provided you. That is another decision the president will make. He has the option to go back to major combat operations to complete the comprehensive target list. And we estimated at the time there was about 25% of the targets left that would take maybe 10 to 2 weeks. Now, obviously, some of those targets are being reduced here as a result of the focus on the Straits of Hormuz, to be sure. But there's a lot of other targets out there that are not involved in this battle that we're fighting.
All right, General Keane, lots more to talk about, so I hope you'll join us again. Thank you very much, General. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, great talking to you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.